Welcome to this midweek message. I'm Drew Goins. Today I have with me Nick Poole. We are continuing our journey through Bible people A to Z. We are all the way to H, so there's some honorable mentions around H. We could have gone Hannah or Hagar, Haggai. Any other honorable mentions?
You know, it's funny. I had some whenever I was actually studying through this, but no, none that specifically come to mind at this point.
This is also probably our most, I'm going to say, mainstream character so far that we've done. So we're actually going to be digging into Hosea today. Do you know what Hosea means? This is my favorite part. I'm sure you do.
So here's the fun thing. I'm actually wanting to see how much you have studied Hosea's story. So I'm going to test you a little bit.
All right.
So I love word studies, so of course I know what Hosea means. I want to see if you do, because I kind of love the story and how the names kind of translate in Scripture. So there's really 5 main characters outside of God in this story, and it's 7 if you count Israel being one of the main characters, which I would through the whole book. So Hosea, what does Hosea mean?
Hosea, I think what I found, salvation.
Yeah, very good.
So,
all right. So what does Gomer mean?
Ooh,
which is really interesting. The fact that her name was Gomer.
I'm gonna say whore. I don't know.
It doesn't.
Okay, I don't. Sorry.
So whenever I did this kind of word study, I thought the same thing. I thought it's gonna be something like whore, or it's gonna be something so degenerate.
What is it?
Complete.
Complete. Okay.
Gomer means complete, because this is not the first time that Gomer, the name, has actually been used in Scripture. It's actually used several other times throughout the Old Testament.
So
it's actually seen
there are more
in
Gomers.
Genesis. Yeah.
Okay.
So like Gomer means complete. Hosea means salvation. Now, if you've read Hosea and you've read the first chapter, second chapter, and third chapter.
Can I make a disclaimer about that too? If you haven't read it, we'll tell a little bit of the story. There's a reason that I guessed what I guessed with that story. So just hang on. I promise that we'll get back there.
Yeah.
So don't think that I'm just calling people mean names for fun. So.
All right. Jezreel. Do you know what Jezreel means?
Okay. I may mix these up, but I'm going to say no mercy.
You're close.
Okay. Not my people.
Nope, it's not that one either.
Valley. Is it a reference to a valley where they lost a great battle?
It is a reference that where they lost a great battle, and the whole reason the name was there was because of that. But
so who is that?
Jezreel was Hosea and Gomer's first child, which was a boy. Jezreel is a reference to this great battle that they lost. I think it's in 1st or 2nd Kings. It's in one of the two. But Jezreel means God sows.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's go to child number 2.
That's no mercy.
That one is no mercy.
No mercy.
Lo Rumaha. I'm butchering the name. I'm sorry.
That's it. You got it.
So the last one is Lo Ami.
Not my people.
Yeah. And it's really interesting and whenever I stacked them up and I was writing this down, it says, God sows no mercy, not my people.
Well, yeah.
And I went, Yee.
Yeah.
But what is really interesting there with the story, and we'll get into kind of a really interesting setup. So Hosea's name means salvation. Gomer's means complete. And then when you bring them together, it would mean like complete salvation. Which is amazing when you look at this story.
Yeah.
So let's back up and
tell us. So we were in the setting for this in the Old Testament of Hosea. In the Old Testament, God often asked people to do strange things, if that's fair to say. Mm-hmm. One of those strange things was he asked Hosea to make himself a wife of whoredom, verbatim, and children of whoredom, just to set the story. And Hosea does, so in comes the 3 children you mentioned. But then what happens? So he goes and finds Gomer, again, a person of what's the oldest known profession, or what's the something like that? Yeah. So
what's really interesting in the commentaries that I read regarding Gomer specifically, there was two trains of thought whenever it came to her, and one was she was just a street prostitute, and that's where people tend to lean more
Okay.
where she was. But when you look into chapter 3, when Hosea goes to bring her back, there might be some inclination that she may have actually been a prostitute of the temple, or
Okay. Which is common in that day.
yeah, absolutely. So that was something where in certain temples, certain gods would require you to have sex with one of the female prostitutes in order to worship that particular deity. So their thinking was, whenever we look into chapter 3 later, Gomer has actually left Hosea, went back into her practice as a prostitute, and Gomer is ordered by God to go get her and to pay for her, and then go through this process with her to redeem her.
Mm-hmm.
And Gomer has to pay something for that to happen. And what I love about this particular story is when you look at Hosea and Gomer, God was very intentional whenever he said, go marry her. He didn't just pick anyone at random. He said, go marry Gomer. And he did this because in the greater scope of the book of Hosea, because you can't just look at Hosea, the story, and because it's literally chapters 1, a little bit of 2, and then chapter 3. And then the rest of the book is God just furious. Mm-hmm. I mean, him just laying out his case of, this is why Israel has messed up. I cannot believe that they have done this. And then towards the end, you see this this reconciliation, this salvation story kind of come full circle. But the way that God uses Hosea and Gomer, he uses them as a lens for the reader to use through the rest of the book.
That's a good point.
And they're used as this their symbolic love for Israel, and it's kind of on point. I mean, Christians have a terrible time whenever it comes to mainstream culture because they're always seen as these hypocrites. And it was really funny. I heard this theologian once say, you can be there's two types of hypocrites. There's the public hypocrite and there's the private hypocrite.
Okay.
He's like, you can be a public hypocrite and be that kind of a Christian because we all mess up even after salvation. No matter how much we struggle with this, we're always going to be there. And then there's the private hypocrite who actively judges everyone. Is like, I'm better than everyone. It's interesting. God's like, you're going to be the public hypocrite because we're all Gomer in this story. We always have this tendency as Christians to fall back into our previous habits and sin, and it's just that's our nature.
That's kind of my application piece today too, is that we often read stories and sometimes we put ourselves as the wrong characters. So it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, I'm Hosea in this story, that I'm going to go and help these people even after this thing. But no, often we are the Gomers that fall back into that. We do that. So that was kind of my encouragement to us today as we read that God is salvation, and he is the Hosea that is there to redeem us even after our falls. And that's kind of what hit me as I read this. I've often read myself as the good guy in stories or something, but here, I mean, I'm the whore in this story, if that makes sense. So
I go along those very similar lines. There's really not a whole lot of wiggle room in the Hosea story, because I mean, it was a very clear relationship between God and Israel as it was Hosea to Gomer. And I think what's really neat is another way that you can kind of look at it is parent to child. My wife and I are reading through this book right now, and it's talking about repair. And it's this particular author talks about how no matter how far you go, like no matter how far you mess up, there's always room for repair. Yeah. And even in this long, and I mean, I really want to encourage you, if you've never read the book of Hosea, read it in small increments and always look at it from the perspective of the Hosea to Gomer relationship, because it's a lot, and it's really difficult in our Anglo-American kind of viewpoint of Christ, to see this much anger come from God. But I don't see it as, I see it as anger, but I also see it as heartbreak. I see a lot of heartbreak from God of, I can't believe you would do this. I can't believe you've done this. Like, I had a plan for you. I've done all of these things. Like, why would you turn away from me like this? And then God is the one that initiates the repair.
That's the other thing of like the God is just, and there is the judgment with God, but on the flip side, after that judgment, there's that relationship too. Yeah. That always continues on the other side of that. That's really good.
And it's always this longing for that relationship too. I think that gets me. And we talk about a lot.
In this, it would be the pursuit a little bit. In that sense, it would have been. I can sit here and wait for her to come back, but no, it's like I'm going out to pursue her, to purchase her, to redeem her. It's the action of I'm going to get as opposed to sit and wait.
Yeah, it's a great story, and for those of you watching, if you have never seen Redeeming Love, it's actually a really good illustration of this idea, even though it's only 1 or 2 chapters in the Bible. They actually take it and they will run with the Hosea Gomer story, and they do a great. It's a hard movie to watch, but it is really good whenever it comes to like a good visualization of what it was like of that relationship between Hosea and Gomer. So I want to encourage you to watch it. It's really good.
I still have not seen it, so I need to see it.
This is the second podcast where I've recommended that.
We're going to start getting royalties from Redeeming Love, I think, and plugging their.
No, I actually have a deal with them. I'm not allowed to mention it more than twice.
Okay,
so you got lifetime.
Your plug-in. So, man, anything else?
No, man. I think we covered
it. That was good. I enjoyed today. Thank you for doing that with us. Hope you out there. Hope you're listening. Hope you've stayed along. And if you haven't caught all of our characters, now's a great time to go back and catch up on a couple of them. Tell us your favorite. Tell us what you want for an upcoming one. We've got Eye on Deck with Gary, and it's an interesting one. So just stay tuned for next week. Thanks for listening. Stay encouraged. God bless.